Thanks for being on here. So our topic is maximizing your value. What are you worth? What are your rates worth? How do you raise your rates? What's the process you go through when you're raising both your rates or if you're just asking for a raise in salary in general? So that's what we're going through. And Mr. Cascarano is actually the first person that I called because when it comes to managing money, this guy's a master. So, Tom, take it away. We're trying, like I said, if we get more on, we'll try to get everybody to at least share what they can.
Okay.
So, hey, Todd. So, Tom, share with us what you have.
Good. Well, you have a two-part process that you're talking about. One is going in and asking for a possible increase in your salary, and you're also talking about increase of lesson rates. So I'll
Correct.
go to the salary part first. History is important in what you've done for your facility, whether or not it's a country club or whatever facility that you're at. It is important that you understand what you've done in the past, the good things that you've brought, increase of activity, what new events, how have you accomplished those factors in making the program that you're running better. Could be a junior program, could be an adult program. All those things that are involved, you'll culminate that information, and then you'll have to, from that information, sit down with your superiors, whoever that may be. Could be a board, could be a president, could be a general manager, that you're going to sit down and say, here are the things that I've done that has accomplished more activity, bigger activity, increased activity. Here are the reasons why I think I deserve that increase of salary. So it's real important that you have concrete information, not to just walk in there and go, I've been here for 3 years. I need that increase. I would like to have it. You've got to have concrete information to bring forth to those individuals that you're speaking to. Once you can do that, then you can make that positive sale about who you are, what you've done to, again, create that increase of your salary. The second part of that is lesson increases. And the first thing that I always talk about when I was in Greensboro is you have to do some research. And that research is finding comparatives around your area. So for instance, I would not call somebody in Atlanta and ask what their lesson rates are, whether or not they're clinic or private lesson rates or whatever group lesson rates. I would find comparatives in our area of Greensboro. And then I would take that information and utilize that. What is charging, 2 miles down the street? What's being charged 5 miles down the street? Take that information and say, is this information helpful in getting those increases? Am I below rate? Am I above rate? I would also go outside of my area. For instance, if I'm in Greensboro, I am, and I would look at Charlotte and I would look at Raleigh and I go, okay, their increases or their ideas of increase may be bigger than what I can do in Greensboro because their cost of living is different. But I also am a professional that gives a professional service. So I want to be sure I have that in mind when I work those increases. Once I get that data in mind, then I can go to myself and my staff and sit down and talk with them and say, okay, here's what we're looking at. This is what we're trying to do. Once I can get the staff to buy in, and most every staff is going to do that because they want increases as well, then I would sit down with my committee chairman and say, here's what we're looking at. How do you feel as a member about this? Get feedback from 1 or 2. Be careful of getting feedback of your membership of 11 or 12. Be sure it's in that 1 or 2 or 3 range at the most. Most members don't want to see increases, but you also have to understand that it happens in this business that we, a lot of times, are well below what the norm should be. So we've got to get the information, put it out there, get the data, talk to people that we feel will help us, and then don't be afraid to bite the bullet and make it happen. If you need a $3 increase per lesson, if you need a $5 increase per lesson, I think it's important that you do it. I don't agree with increments. There's some pros that will do this and go $2 up this year, another $2 next year. I think you need to bite the bullet and go $5 per lesson increase or per hour increase right off the bat, or a $7 increase per hour, per half an hour, whatever it is. I think it's real important that you look at that and push forward.
So
I
Tom, you're
yes,
waiting longer between, you wouldn't say every year you're going to do an increase. You're waiting a longer time,
yes,
and then you're hitting the bigger increase.
yes. And once I make that increase, Pat, I'm going to hold it there for 3 or 4 years and then go ahead and look at another
Okay,
increase in 3 years or in 4 years when I think it's appropriate to go ahead and make that jump.
got it.
Thank you.
Awesome, awesome. I
Hey,
think Rod, I think Rod is
yeah, I'm here.
on. Are you on the call, Rod Heppelman?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, I hear you, and I know he's got a
Very
little
good.
bit of a squeeze in his schedule, and he agreed to come on and join us. So, can you share on this? Tom shared with both how he would ask and how he would set up to get an increase in his salary, and then for him and his staff, and then also how he would go about getting an increase in lesson rate. So, if you can share with us, please.
Okay. Well, I did send you some information that I think sort of is a predecessor before you actually go for that increase, which is setting up an atmosphere of where you really show your relevance at the club and really show your importance to the owners. I've worked with a lot of corporate groups, and what I find is that they manage through a general ledger. They don't really manage through people as well. So I've always made a point of having the pro. There's two things they really miss. One is the fact that they need to be more interactive with the members in a social way, which helps a great deal. But they'll run activities and programs and events. And in the process, they need to, and they usually do them pretty good, but in the end process of that is giving yourself the PR of how important that is, so that the owners see the value in you because of your member retention. That's a big difference than years ago, because it used to be member attraction. Now it's member retention that's so focused. And I think that's one of the things that, you're trying to keep track of and sell to the owners. Now, getting to your point about increases, what have you, my idea about getting a pay increase, again, is predicated on how relevant I can show the management I am. And I have to have records of that. I have to have a way of showing that relevance and being able to put it into numbers, essentially. And then from that point, I can now sit there and calculate what sort of increase I deserve. And you can do that by looking at the dues they pay, the amount of money they bring into the club via cafe, what have you. So rather than say, I want this amount, you really need to work with the reality of what the numbers are for the business. And some businesses, as we know, a few years ago, did not do that well. Others are now doing very well. So if you can tie yourself into the connection of why the business is financially successful, then you can start to calculate your raise. So that's my 2 cents on that stuff.
Nice. What about is that kind of the same formula you use, Rod, when you're looking at increasing lesson rates?
Lesson rates is the same thing. As you could sit there and say, "Hey, I'm very busy," but I think the whole point behind a lesson rate would be your cost of living. And when you look at certain situations where I'm in Marin County, and I watch the membership, and I'm just using myself as an example. I know it's not true across the board, but I just want to share this. So what happened with us is we had a surge in our membership come back after the pandemic, but also there was a transition for whatever reason because of Marin County, the changes it had. All of a sudden, we noticed that almost all of our new members financially were really well off, very well off. So I actually went from that point in time to basically almost a 40% increase. And people kind of went, whoa, I had nobody give me negative feedback at all, because I knew I could get that from those people. I mean, I had Brad Gilbert was my neighbor. He was charging $480 an hour 10 years ago, and he knew he could get it. So essentially, it's hard to calculate how much you should raise it, because you really have to look at your market and say, what are they willing to do? And I just went around and I looked at car mechanics or people who do other things, services of that nature. And I saw everything over the last couple of years, because of inflation, just go skyrocket. And then I looked at it and I said, we can bring this up a bit. So we're at 135 an hour now. And that seems to have no issues whatsoever. And that was going from 90 an hour about 2 years ago. Wow. So I made a big jump. As to how long that happens, again, I hate to sound as though I don't have a set timer, but I don't. I would look at what our cost of living is and what's going on around here. We have a very tech savvy community, and in the last couple of years, we've had an influx of, quite frankly, tons of people who are in the tech industry, and they do quite well. And financially, for them, it means nothing to lay down, about $40 an hour more. So that's how I based it. That's just my experience with my market. And I would say that one of the things I've learned from traveling all over is that the markets change dramatically from state to state, weather and all this stuff. So you really have to look at your market and see what your market do. And the best way to do that is just take a look around and see other things that have escalated in prices. Like I said, whether it be, a hairdresser or a mechanic or somebody of that nature, anybody that's providing a service, the plumber, what have you. You look at that and you say, wow, they really got expensive. Well, that's why. Your local economy is pushing that. So I try to use those as measurements.
Awesome. Todd, do you want to chime in on something, or are we going to go to Tom Douglas next?
I can jump in. Some good notes already. Tommy C. looks like he was very prepared for his side of the presentation, which was good. I come from a different aspect right now because I'm not at a country club, so I'm not at a club that's owned by members or has owners or whatnot, and so ours is more in the public form, and so the three things that we look for of how we're going to increase business is one. There's three ways we can make more money. We can either charge people more, we can get more customers, or we can make the customers we have buy more frequently. So that's the only three ways we can make more money in any market, any business. So what we have to do is less of selling to the higher ups, because I really don't have a boss. We own our own business. It's how can I provide more value to the people that are currently coming to me, and how can I beef up my referral business, and how can I get my word of mouth business? So we do a lot of. I partnered with some local restaurants, especially the Mexicans that I like to go eat at. Mexican restaurants I like to go eat at, and they were more than happy to give me $5 and $10 gift cards or sell them to me for half price. And whenever we get referrals here at any of the facilities that we run or the schools that we run, we are happy to hand those gift cards off for them to go and use that. And it's not much, it's $5-10, but it's something. And it kind of encourages people to be able to do that and be able to pass people our way. I just went up this beginning of 24 with my lesson rate, but I'd held it for 3 years. Right after COVID. So we went up, and it was just kind of looking around. We have a pretty big Lifetime Fitness that's close to us. And I talked to a couple of their pros, and, I've been in the business at that time 30 years, and they had a pro that had been certified for 6 months, and she was charging $5 more than I was. So I said, well, that's probably not good. So I had to go apples to apples a little bit. So, but we make more and do more because we offer more, or our service gets better. I wish that I was in a situation where I could collect data and go to the owners and say I need a salary bump. But it's really, for us, is better times, better opportunities, and word of mouth is how we really increase our overall business.
That's good. One quick comment. For all the people that are on this call, we do get some education credits, but there's quite a few people that have names that I can't tell who you are. I see Jag, I see Montana, I see Play More Tennis, Rebecca, and Rick's iPhone. So if you will email at usptasouthern@gmail.com and just let me know who you are and that you're on the call, or you can go on and rename yourself and to what I will find you to give you credit. Okay, thanks.
Can I intervene in a second there, Pat?
take it right now, and then we'll go into Douglas.
Yeah, it'll only take a second. I'm going to jump into what Todd said about finding out that neighbor pro that he talked to or talked to someone and found out that she was $5 more. We used to do this. Todd actually, I think, remembers this. We actually have yearly pro meetings, and one of the things that we discuss is lesson rates locally. So we don't have individuals that are charging way off kilter one way or the other. And we also talk about increases together as pros. And again, we have a very close-knit professional crew here in Greensboro, but those meetings can be valuable in understanding our lesson rates, that if somebody is charging $15, $10 less than what everybody else is, he understands that. So he can get his lesson rates up. Or if we want to make a change, we actually do it as a team. So it's nice to know that we can all agree upon, and we'll try to keep that monopoly of prices closer together from pro to pro, club to club, so you don't see somebody charging a higher amount or way lower than what everybody else is in Greensboro. So I wanted to throw that in. That's that other data that I think is important to collect.
That's awesome. And I have a question from Dan, and I'm going to get back to Dan in a little bit and ask how you do it, how you ask for a raise, Dan, because he's in a different position than being the top dog. Dan asked about, and maybe quick comments on this, about if you have tiered rates on your staff. For instance, maybe your top pro has a higher rate, and the next person has a different rate, and the next person has a different rate. So anybody that can say something on that, chime in real quick. Todd, are all your rates the same at your club?
No, mine are based on experience. Okay. And we also tier the rates, and Tom Cascarano probably could speak to this too, or anybody could. I also tier the rates of my percentage that I receive from the pro based on length of time with me, and also the amount of business that they do. And Tom and I talked about this a whole lot many years ago when I was at a country club. When they get to a certain amount a month, I stop taking the percentage as well. So if they're doing really great and they get to a certain amount, they know that that's all they're going to give percentage that month. And then also with the pros, with the tiered, with our junior program at least, I used to pay them by the hour, and then I went to a percentage of the program because some of the pros wanted to get out of junior clinic so they could go teach a private lesson and they could make some more money doing that. And I switched them to percentages, so we all did better when everybody was more invested in the junior program. So that was a big change. But we definitely are tiered between myself and the three other pros that we have. Everybody's a little bit different rate, and it's something that I speak to them individually. And if I have a pro that's got some more education or got some more experience or stepped up, I'm happy to revisit their lesson rate and let them raise their rate. So I'm happy to do that.
Awesome. It sounds like that's Tom Cascarano's plan, that you got it from him already. So
I followed his plans. They're pretty good.
Cool. Good man to follow. Tom,
yeah, sure.
Tom Douglas, quick comment maybe on that, and then share your thoughts on this topic.
So you guys just stay here. We'll just keep the same age.
You have to really know and believe in your value. When you want to raise rates and everything, you've got to believe you're worth it. And do I believe in tiered staff rates? Absolutely, based on certification and quality and experience. I think that's very important. And you give your clientele choices. This way, if money is a factor, then there's options for them. So definitely, I think you should have a tiered pay scale for staff. And if you feel like you're worth a great deal more, go ahead and put it out there. Right now, with inflation and everything, this is really a good time, I think, to raise rates. People's expectation is every single thing is going up. So it's not something they're going to balk at. But a couple of ideas I have is, number one, if you're going to raise your rates, maybe you want to set up packages to keep the status quo so that people, again, have that choice. If you want to raise your hourly rate and then have a package where it brings to the normal rate, so you're gaining more business, but you're just gaining more lessons. The other thing I would consider is time. You know, golfers charge 45-minute lessons, and there's a lot more touches, and this way you can possibly keep your rate similar, but have more touches. You're going to be teaching more lessons, and doing it in 45-minute increments. I think that's an excellent way to do it. But offering the customer, giving the customer choices is the main thing, and knowing your value. To Rod's point with geography, I mean, geography is huge. You know, the South is a little bit different than the West Coast. I think you have to look at do your diligence, like everybody's mentioned so far, and know what the surrounding areas are doing, and know about talking in percentages, and have your background, what you've accomplished before you go into any meeting. You have to have data. You have to show the why, I think, before you ask for anything. But reducing the time, I believe in Tommy C's point about no small increments. If you're going to do it in $5 and $10 increments. And I think there's less hurt initially. And people realize the rates are going up. I mean, this is a time where everybody is paying more money. So why remind them every year with a $2 increase? Go ahead and do a $5 or $10 increase if that's substantial.
Awesome. Thank you, Tom. Thank you for sharing. So I'm going to ask Dan Beadle. Thanks for being on this, Dan. And I've kind of known. I think, Dan, are you? You can nod your head up and down. Would you be 10 years in this business? Or are you even more than 10 now?
12.
12. Okay. I knew it was around 10, and I've probably known Dan for nearly the whole time. And I don't know that I've known a pro that came in as a young pro. Of course, he went to Ferris State and has a great education. But this guy educates. He goes to things. He's always looking for that next level. So we can't get enough that will do what Dan does, because he's old school, really. But share your thoughts, if you would, on, as a pro that's on the staff, how do you go about getting a raise or asking to raise your rates in your lessons? Kind of what do you have to do?
It's been different, kind of at different places I've been. And at my first job in Shreveport, I had asked my boss for a raise. He told me similar to what Tom and Todd talked about, you know, looking around the local area, who's charging what. So, you know, staying relevant price-wise with that. And then, you know, as I got more education and certifications, bringing that to my boss's attention as, hey, I've got this new expertise, or I've got more knowledge in this area. That knowledge is worth a little bit more money compared to maybe some other pros that weren't certified or didn't have that certification. And sometimes the answer was yes, sometimes it was no, but you know, that's how life goes sometimes.
Good, thanks. And I think we've heard already how important it is to have data behind what you're asking for, when you can show proof of how much you've increased business and what you've done. But yeah, I mean, Dan is you've done so much, so let's keep it up. It's nice to see all that you've accomplished already.
Hey, Pat, I got a question or a point with what Dan said right there. And I think if you talk with, you know, a Tom Cascarano or a Tom Douglas, who have been, you know, directors of big clubs, had lots of pros. When it comes around to your pros asking for their raises, or you asking for your raise, all the conferences, all the things that they attend and all that, I always encourage the staff to come back and write a little page of what I learned when I was at that, especially if the club's paying for it. What did I get out of it? And then turn it in. Then it's documented. Put it in my file. I went here. I heard Pat Whitworth tell me about how to do this or that, and I heard about club programming from Tom Cascarano. And this is the 2 or 3 ideas I'd like to bring back to the club. And it's documented. Then it's in there, and you can say, "Hey, I have been doing this." in there. This is not just a, hey, surprise, I'd like a raise kind of thing. So when you put those documentation, especially if you're only raising your lesson rates every 2 or 3 years, you've got, at least 4 or 5 opportunities with conferences or things like that, or webinars you've been on to say, look, I am increasing my worth to the club and to the membership. And I think it's very valuable for assistant pros to do that to the director, because then he or she has the data behind them to support what they're asking for.
That's good, Todd. I know a lot of clubs and boards and management think that we're going to a conference in this party city the whole time. So I always did that myself coming back as a director, because I wanted my club to know these are the things that we learned. These are the things I'm bringing back. I wanted them to know on all the things we attended. I would actually list every seminar that I would go to also, even if there wasn't big takeaways. I wanted them to see that I was going to things. I see Hank Avance is on the call. There's a fellow that's been with us for years and owner and such. If he can figure out how to get on, I'd love to hear from him, or if anybody else has a thought. We've got about probably 12 or 13 minutes left on this. This has been great already. So I know, does anybody else have something to share or add on? Or I see Hank's he had video, but no audio. So, and I see Paul's on here. Thanks for doing your name, Paul. Does anybody else have something to share?
I might just add one. Go ahead, Tom. I might just add one other thing. Yeah, I really believe in giving the clients choices, because you're always going to have those people that economically they want the best deal they can possibly get. I understand that. But conversely, you're going to also have the people that will only take lessons from the top dog because you're the top dog. So no matter what your price is, they perceive you as the lead and the top dog, and they're going to pay that price. So I think it works both ends there.
Great call. Tom Cascarano?
I look at two things, and Tom Douglas made a good point. As the director, I always feel that my time is more valuable. So because my time is more valuable, because there's so many other hats that I'm juggling with here, my rate's going to be higher. And I obviously have experience to justify that as well. In reference to the assistant, sometimes it's just as easy as to look at supply and demand. Do I have an assistant that's already putting 35, 40, 45, 50 hours a week in? If that individual is putting that kind of time in, I'm going to sit down with it. I'm going to say, listen, you've put this time in, you've made your efforts into creating the demand for you. I'm going to increase you because you actually have really created extra activity into our program. You brought more people on the court. You've increased our clinics. You've done things. So I look at that too, not just because of the value, but what they've done to the program as their own image. So I really looked at that a lot in my assistants, and I would keep data every month, and I still have data, even being retired. I've got it back from 1992 of all my assistants and how many hours they put in on a weekly and monthly basis. I see Tom Douglas laughing at me. But
I am personally shocked at that, Tom. I'm totally surprised at that. So.
Yeah, but that was my factor. And so I looked at supply and demand, and I would talk to my pros and say, listen, you're down in hours or you're up in hours. Let's talk. So those are things that were real big for my staff and myself.
That's awesome. Okay, I see Hank's trying to connect on
Rod,
his audio.
Yeah. Quickly, Pat, and then I got to take off. But I
Rod,
really
thanks.
appreciate the other people putting in their 2 cents. I think that's great. And I think the two things I'm taking away from this is I kept hearing the word value. And I think that's something that each pro should somehow analyze and say, what is their value? And how do I find out what my value is? That's another seminar in itself. And then also the fact that it's more regional. And that in itself requires some interpretation as to each person's decision. But those are the two takeaways I have right now that I think are very helpful. And I hope all of you the best of luck and a good sunny summer. I say that because we're out here, we get sun, you guys get the rain. But have a good time, and I appreciate all of you taking the time to share your information. And it's always good, Pat, to connect with you. It's one of my favorite things to do all year.
Oh, thanks, Rod. Thank you so much for joining us. Take care.
You got it. Thanks. Bye.
All right. Hank's still trying to find out how to do his audio. Where's a 15-year-old when you need him? I got some other folks on this call still. If anybody else has something to share with us, we have about 8 minutes, I think, left in this before we get cut off.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
And it's going to be directed to Tommy Douglas because he's in the other side in evaluating professionals for businesses. So when you go through a resume and you check things and you talk to people, Tom, how do you evaluate quality within the person that you're dealing with to look at that possible information? And this kind of relates a little bit, it may be a little off subject, but I'd like to hear how you evaluate those individuals, because we are talking about evaluation of pros for their increases of both lesson rates and salaries.
You know, I want to see experiences. I want to see growth. I don't want to see complacency. If I see someone's resume where they're doing the same thing over and over and over again, it's not showing me a lot of initiative. I want someone who's very hungry and someone who feels like growth is part of the mainstream of their job. Performance is everything.
Thank you.
That's good. So what's the idea of, maybe anybody can share on this, that you say, well, my lesson book's full, I just can't hardly take anybody else. So I've been at a certain rate, and I'm just going to jack my rate up $10 or $15 because if I lose a 10% or 15% of my clientele, I'm going to be at the same place anyway, and it starts to weed the garden a little bit, and maybe they'll trickle down and take from somebody else. Yeah, Tom's shaking his head no. I know people that have done this. You don't like that idea.
No, because you're giving off a negative response to that. Your goal is to increase activity wherever you are. That means whether or not it's events, it's socials, it's lessons, it's clinics, you got to give off on a day-to-day a positive feedback to what we're trying to do, and that is promote the sport of tennis to the group that you're dealing with. So I'm always cautious of going to an avenue that creates a little bit of a negative response. And I'm not saying increase your lesson rate is wrong. I'm just saying that you have to be careful of giving a negative feedback to the people that you're working for. And I always want to believe that if I'm in a situation that I'm teaching, hypothetically, 35 hours a week is the max I want to do, and I've got the potential to do 40, I'm going to find a way to get other activities involved. Maybe if it's not me on the court, maybe it's an event, maybe it's a bigger clinic, maybe it's something. And there's younger people out there with better ideas than myself, but I promise you it's about positive feedback, increasing member on that activity report. And Rod made a comment about retention. You do something like that, you want to see 10% of your group go the wrong way, there's a negative response. So you have to be careful with how you approach it.
Good call. Yep. I know people that do that, but I like that thought. Once again, everybody, we got maybe 3 or 4 minutes. I want anybody, the names that are listed up here is Jag, Montana, Rebecca, Rick's iPhone. I don't know who that is, so just please make sure that you've emailed to usptasouthern@gmail.com to let me know who that is, and I can find your USPTA number if you don't know it. Dan, I'm going back to you again because I don't think anybody else is coming on. So do you feel, and once again, I bragged on Dan, but I know he's done, he's a cardio trainer. He just went recently to the directors, what was that called? The Directors
Club.
Directors Club. He's not a director, but he went to the Directors Club because that's what he's going to be. Are you seeing all the work? You go to so many conferences, you go to both PTR and PTA, and you go to numerous other things. Do you feel like you've gotten your value yet for all the time you've spent training and educating?
Yeah, I think you get out of it what you put in. I know this talk and conversations about rates and money. I look at it more. I think Todd said bringing value. If I learn something at a conference and I can help the player, enjoy their time on court more, then it was worth it, even if it doesn't necessarily bring a direct financial benefit for me. But I think as long as you continue to do that, like Tom Douglas said, it shows growth. I think eventually it will pay off financially as well for you.
That's good. Mr. Upchurch, you have any parting words?
I think everybody's in agreement of if you attach the value, if people see the value, then the rate matches that. I would be curious. We don't have time to dig into it now, but I'd be curious if anybody raised their rates and it negatively affected them and they had to go back down. I wonder if that's happened, or if you're opened up 2008 and said, all right, we're kicking butt, we're going up 10-15% in our lesson rates, and then the economy craters, like, hey, just kidding, we're going back down. So I wonder if that, I know that has happened, I'm sure that it has happened, but again, it's people are busy. If they've got 40-50 hours worth of lessons, because they're providing value to people. You're not going to go spend, nobody on this call is going to go spend money with people that don't provide value or make you feel better after the lesson or the event's over. Or, I mean, it's the same thing. I've bought the last 10 cars from the same dealership because I feel like I like the people, and I feel like I got good value there, and I keep using the same sales manager because he provides value to me, and I can call him and ask him questions, all that. So it's the same thing. The car prices have gone up in the last 20 years, but you still go back because that person provided value to you and feel like you were accepted. So that's the biggest part of that. And, it's even bigger if you go macro and you say, when somebody's first experience with a tennis pro, that's a huge thing too, regardless of the rate, what keeps them in the game in the first place. And so, there's a lot more that you can dig into it, but I think we've covered it pretty well, but it's a value for sure.
All right, gang. Well, look, we got 20 seconds left. Tom, you got something quick?
I was just going to add to Todd's comments that I don't see the price of lasagna going down, Todd.